Welcome to Dread and the Shabin, a podcast for those who want to be informed, inspired, and positively impacted. I am your host, Delroy Nestor, the Dread. My co-host is absent today, so I'm riding solo. But on behalf of Shabin Tikia, I want to apologize for her absence. Again, thanks for joining us this morning, this evening, or night, afternoon, wherever, whatever time of the day it is, wherever you are. This is our seventh episode, and this one we're focusing on child abduction slash kidnapping, safety and security of our children. We all remember the case of Kenisha Etienne of Warner that shook Dominica to its core a few years ago. Again, rest in peace to our angel Kenisha. We will always remember you. We never imagined that another island just north of us would experience a similar case. Today, I have the pleasure of being in the company of Alicia George, an award-winning Dominican journalist who is currently based in Antigua and Barbuda. Good day, Alicia, and how are things with you?
Hi, Delroy. I am well. It's a beautiful Saturday that I spent inside, as usual.
As usual.
As usual.
For a journalist, shouldn't you be outside?
I prefer my own company, especially when I'm off, because I use that to sleep. So it was a good day for me.
Well, you're not off anymore. You're with us, so you're in work. Before
I'll
we go
keep
into
that in mind.
specifics, okay, cool. Before we go into specifics, what's the energy like in Antigua at this present time?
I'll tell you what. From the Friday night into the Saturday morning when news broke that they found 9-year-old Chantelle Crump's body, it was very tense. The air was very heavy. You had people making comments, remarks on Facebook, outrage. You had people who were usually vocal being very silent because it was a hard pill to swallow. And so from then on, you had that continuous heaviness, parents concerned where their children are leaving school or if they're home by themselves or asking what protocols. We've seen community groups huddling together trying to figure out, okay, what is the best way we can safeguard our children? Because nobody ever imagined that something like this would happen, which is very strange to me. But we'll get to that later on. But I mean, people are very empathetic to the family. People are confused because I'm sure by now you know who was arrested and charged for her murder. It's a 20-year-old girl. People are shocked. They're in disbelief even that this one girl or young woman could commit this crime, and they're looking for punitive measures to be extended to her partner, who, by all accounts, we're not hearing is being charged. We're not hearing had any involvement in it. But that is just what the atmosphere is like now. Everybody wants answers, and they want things to be done now. They want the police to step up their game because they've been slacking in a number of areas, in my personal opinion and in the opinion of the public.
Okay, can you tell us briefly what occurred in terms of when it occurred, the kidnapping, and just a brief timeline so as to understand how it's rolled out?
So obviously in the beginning, we did not know that it was a kidnapping. It was just a case of a missing child. And I don't think in the past we've ever had, at least since I've been here, and I've been here well over 10 years, perhaps over 11, that we've ever had a missing child's poster with a minor. Usually it's the teenagers, and they pop up ever so often somewhere after you've asked for assistance in finding them. So when the flyer started going around that this child was missing, obviously you would have people who would probably just brush it off as, maybe the child went somewhere because they started hearing rumors that she was picked up by a lady. So they're like, okay, maybe she went by her aunt and they misplaced her and stuff like that. But as the time kept going by, hours into the next day, people are like, okay, where is this child? So last week, Wednesday, a missing flyer was sent out. We did not receive, as media, anything official from the police. And this is something that we've been battling when people go missing. We usually see it on Facebook, a flyer that the family themselves would have created. We don't get any alerts from the police beforehand. Perhaps sometimes not unless weeks or days after we don't get an official broadcast from the police. So this flyer was going around saying this 9-year-old had gone missing. Again, there was nothing in the flyer to indicate that she was abducted. It was the regular thing saying where she was last seen. She was walking, and this is what the police has reported.
Right.
She was walking with 2 other classmates. She was coming from school. She attended the Five Islands Primary School, which is close to where she lives in Grace Farm. At least the proximity is closer than a number of other schools in the area. She was put down by the bus because there is a bus system. However, the bus doesn't put you directly in front of your house. You have to walk some distance dependent on where you live. Her friends reported that she got into a vehicle with a lady in a silver car, and she waved them goodbye. And that was the last that they saw of her. That was last Wednesday. The police would have searched, and even before the police put out this manhunt of a search, there were citizens, one familiar name is Bonita Williams, who came online and was trying to let the public and the community know the urgency of what is happening based on the details that she would have received, I guess, outside of the police people talk. And so civilians themselves had organized search parties, search groups, trying to find as much information as they could to look for this young lady. Right. Thursday passed, Friday passed. The police themselves are now looking. I believe it was the Thursday afternoon or sometime Thursday to Friday when it was rumored that they had 2 persons in custody, and one of them would have been the lady that they've now charged with murder. The other would have been her partner. And we didn't hear much from the police as to where she could possibly be, what they're saying. But Saturday morning at about 12 and borderlining Friday night, so Friday night, early Saturday morning, the news broke that they had found her body far, far away, miles away from where she would have been picked up. I am trying to find like a proper distance to kind of show, but you know, nothing's coming to mind. But for Dominican, yeah, I was just gonna say for Dominican listeners, we would say Mao is a bit far, given that everywhere in Antigua is kind of close. Let's say maybe Roseau to Massac.
Massac, okay.
So her body, yeah, so her body would have found in that distance, yeah. We didn't get any further details about how she was found, at least not officially. The police didn't hold a press conference after. Instead, the police themselves, by the way, that Saturday morning, didn't send out a broadcast to inform us that they'd found the body. Media houses who found out on their own, whether it was via tip and so on, started publishing that the body was found, but the police themselves never sent out any of that information to begin with. And that morning, protesters started gathering outside the police headquarters because they were upset. They were angry that this young lady had now died. They felt, well, enough hadn't been done, particularly because we've had a lot of missing persons cases here, right? In a span of just 4 months from, I believe, let's say mid-November to the end of February, 3 people went missing without a trace. One of them, they located their burnt vehicles.
Are those adults or children as well?
Adults. So adults. So I think, so that's why I was saying that when the flyer came out of Chantelle being missing, you'd never seen such a young person gone missing. So people would have probably thought, hey, she went by her aunt, or, you know, it's somebody that she knows. Because I don't think I've ever seen a missing poster with somebody that young. And the people who generally go missing are usually within the range of mid-20s, I would say, maybe 19 to mid-20s, up to elderly people who have gone missing and you never find them again, right? So during November last year and February this year, you had 3 people who had gone missing. The police located the burnt vehicle of one of those persons, and that's all that we know so far. There's no trace of the others, and this is something that has been happening for years. For years, people just go missing. There's a report made, and then after a while, you forget them because the next person has gone missing, right? So there are a number of people. I remember when I started to look up the data, I started to get exhausted because, like, oh my God, that's a lot of people who've gone missing, and we never hear from them again. So when Chantelle was murdered, as I was saying, there were protests outside of the police headquarters that Saturday morning, people calling for the death penalty to be reinstated, people asking the police to ensure that justice is done in that particular case and that justice is swift. It actually forced the acting police commissioner, Everton Jeffers, to come out and address the public. He didn't give details about what had happened. However, he tried to assure persons that they were doing all that they could, that they had the woman in custody, and that charges would be laid that day. I mean, later that night into the next morning, we got information that charges were laid. By the way, even at that point, on Saturday night, we had no official broadcast from the police saying, hey, we found this person, this is the state. We expected there to be a press conference because Prime Minister Gaston Brown had sent out a press release giving condolences or sharing his condolences with the family and stating that the police will hold a press conference. But we've not seen that. We've not seen the police come to speak with residents or to the public to tell them what has happened.
Right. So let me ask you, what is known about the accused, the 20-year-old female, Angela Miha? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. What is known about her?
Right. So I Googled it and it's Miha, but apparently, we're English speaking, so there are a lot of pronunciations going around.
Right.
Again, the police themselves have not said anything, but obviously, as media, we do our research. She's a 20-year-old of Hispanic descent. I believe she was born in Santo Domingo, and she would have came to Antigua at a young age. She's been here for years, and that's pretty much all we know publicly about her. Of course, they have been. Sure.
Alicia, can you take it back again? We were having some difficulties in terms of who she is and so forth.
Right. So, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So she's a 20-year-old of Hispanic descent. I believe she was born in Santo Domingo, or at least that's where her family is from. She's been in Antigua for several years. That's pretty much all we know about her. But of course, there are rumors swirling around, rumors that the police themselves are trying to contain, but that's had to do when you've not addressed the public. There have been rumors and evidence that she may have some mental health challenges. But again, nothing concrete from the police. We've heard and we've seen rumors speaking about the mutilation of her body and stuff like that. Now, none of these things have been confirmed by police. I myself, doing my research, I'm not aware of any of that happening, but that just goes to show what happens when people don't have information and people want information and they will listen to anybody exactly to get it.
I see there's an online petition. Well, I have signed it. I read through it. I signed it. It calls for a number of things, including help from the FBI and Scotland Yard. Do you think outside help is necessary for the Antiguan police, or they are capable of solving the case themselves in terms of getting a guilty verdict from the court system?
I mean, in terms of getting a guilty verdict, that's now out of the hands of the police. It's now up to the judiciary, and the lawyers to present the case and the prosecution.
Evidence building and so.
Right. But in terms of capacity to handle missing persons and crime, I think definitely we need outside help. Because I believe if we had, and by we I mean the police force, had a better handle on what was going on in terms of missing, people would have been more vigilant. People would have spoken to their children about safety. Because, in the Caribbean, we have this laid back thing because we're accustomed to keeping our house or doors unlocked and thinking, okay, our neighbors looking out for our children, but the world is changing, right? We're now becoming a global space and people aren't like that anymore. And
True.
The abduction of Chantelle is a clear case to tell you that we're not the community that we used to be. We don't have that kudme anymore. And so had the police done something, whether it be alerts, hey, a number of people are going missing, we're aware of this, here are some tips. Those tips came afterwards. After persons had gone missing, after that child had been abducted, that's when those tips came in. So definitely, I think the police needs help. They actually said that they had called for help from Scotland Yard, and that was during the murder of late MP Asset Michael after he was killed, which was very interesting because before he was killed, there were two young ladies, teenagers, one of whom was literally butchered, and Scotland Yard was not called in for that. However, I suppose status does play a role. Now that they've caught somebody and charged somebody in his murder, that talk started to die out. We're like, okay, well, where is Scotland Yard? You said that you were going to request the assistance we're not hearing. And now what we're hearing months later, because the police commissioner at the time was actually a Dominican, Atlee Rodney. He has since stepped down, and this is recent, maybe, I think that's less than a month. A couple of weeks ago, he stepped down, and now you have Everton Jeffers and Antigua, who is acting as a commissioner. Now, when Atlee Rodney was commissioner of police, we were promised that we would see Scotland Yard. Now we're hearing from Mr. Jeffers that a case, and I believe Rodney said this as well, the case has to reach a certain part in the investigation in order for Scotland Yard to come out. So we're hearing different versions of what is actually happening, but we're not seeing anything.
Right.
Correct. And in between that, we also heard, well, when Scotland Yard comes, nobody's going to know because we want to keep it private. So you don't really know what to believe because you're hearing a lot of messages, but they do definitely, whether it's Scotland Yard or the FBI, we need the help because we don't have the resources. We hear it from police officers every day. They don't even have enough vehicles to respond to matters. When they get called, they're like, okay, well, we don't have a vehicle. We have to wait for a vehicle. Uniforms, just simple resources that a police force should have. And of course, we know the constraints of all governments, but the resources that they should have, they don't have it.
Okay. Well, I think it's a developing situation that we all need to pay attention to in terms of that case and how the evidence is being built to basically go ahead with the court case. You mentioned a number of cases, both to do with Ascot, the murder, a number of kidnapping cases. Do you think that there's a developing culture of crime and child crime in particular that we should be wary of, not just only in Antigua, but within the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean?
I would not say that we have a number of child crime that we should be wary of. I just believe we have crime in general. And I think it emboldens people to go a step further, to think that they are safe enough or they won't get caught if they were to approach children. We know that when it comes to sexual crimes against minors, that is definitely an issue because for a very long time it had not been seen as a crime. Yeah, a big man with a little girl or vice versa, and you're like, oh, she like big man, that kind of thing. But those are actual crimes, it's an offense. But in terms of capital crimes like murder, I don't think we have a culture of that. I believe in Antigua, for example, Antigua is a melting pot. Okay, I think this is one country that you can come and find a nationality from almost anywhere around the world. And of course, when people come, they bring with them their culture, their upbringing, their thinking. And once that intermingles with a local or Caribbean culture, then we have a problem. I think it is something that we do need to take a look into, and we do need to take a greater look into how it is that we raise our children. And stranger danger is very real. You can't be nice. Some children are just very open and they're nice. And sometimes at one point I used to think that one of my sons, I was like, they could take you away with candy because he's just very friendly.
I don't want to laugh, but
no, it's true. He's very friendly. He will start up a conversation with you, ask you how your day going. Like he's a therapist. And I was like, no, they would steal you, right? So we have to speak to our children
Oh
about the
man.
very real reality that everybody isn't nice, everybody isn't mentally stable. But I don't think we have a child problem, but I think we need to be more stringent in how we raise our children these days.
Right. I read about the Chantelle Alert initiative in Antigua, the Child Safety Initiative, as the emergency response. What else do you think needs to be done to basically build up a culture of response, a culture of a quick response culture? Then, if I may add.
I think it's very unfortunate that we had to get to a point where we have to name an alert after a child who had been killed. But that just shows us the reality of the times that we're living in. Outside of that, I think there are a number of things that we can do, and the police did say that they're going to implement. So we'll wait and see. We have a CapCap app, which is a disaster preparedness app, which can be used to alert as an Amber Alert, or in the sense of Antigua and Barbuda, Chantelle Alert, when a child or a person, I think, in general goes missing. That can definitely be utilized. The challenge with that is that it's an app. You have to download it on your phone. And people, besides WhatsApp or Facebook or social media apps, you have to probably do some real convincing for people to download that app. Another thing is we have a number of billboards across the country
Especially that app that they
where correct. So for example, if a
well,
hurricane is coming and notices need to be sent, it's sent through that app. You also have, the companies, Digicel Flow, the telecommunications company, they also do text messages that could be introduced as well. We have a lot of billboards across the country where the names, the faces, details about the missing people can be published. Of course, you always have to work with the media, because it doesn't matter if it's through social media, through traditional media like radio and television, different people are watching different things. So you always want to engage with the media. Community members have suggested that the police get rid of this 48-hour time slot, because I can tell you there is evidence to support that Chantelle Crump was murdered probably the same day that she was taken. But the law or their regulations would dictate, in order to report somebody missing, they'd have to be missing for more than 2 days. So a number of people have suggested that they get rid of that and start dealing with these matters with a bit more urgency, because of the high number of missing people we've already had. And now this murder case where a 9-year-old
right.
innocent child, and I believe she would have been turning 10 just a couple months from now in June, would have lost her life. And by all indication, we haven't heard of any motive as to why this person wanted to kill. It may well be that this person was going through a manic episode and they decided, well, I'm going to kill somebody today and pull them off the street, because people cannot come to grips that what would a 9-year-old child have possibly done to you for you to decide that I'm going to abduct her and subsequently kill her and discard of her body.
True. But any parting words as we end the episode for those, especially for parents who may be anxious about the current situation? Any guiding lights at the end of the tunnel?
I think it is for us to step back. And when I say step back, I mean it in two ways. Step back and reassess how it is that we operate as a society, and also step back into who we are as a people. Because before the internet age, before the 21st century, we were very close-knit community. Before we had cell phones, your child could have been missing for hours and you were not concerned as to where they were, because somebody somewhere was looking out for their well-being. So I think we need to step back into that. I also think we need to teach our children the signs, various signs, because they always say this is a very isolated situation with Chantelle. But usually when crimes like these are committed, it's with people that you're familiar with and people that you know. So it may be a good family friend that you see coming around and your child trusts them. So we need to start having these conversations with our children. Yes, this is my friend. However, if this person says anything to you that makes you feel uncomfortable, I need you to report it. Here's where you need to go. We also need to set up buddy systems when it comes to our children, because the last murder of a child in Antigua and Barbuda would have been in 2006. And that was the murder of Jemuel Samuel, I believe her name was. She was 10 years old. She was the daughter of a police officer. And it just so happened on the day she was killed was the one day that she was not accompanied, I believe, by her cousins. They usually accompany her to school, but I think they were sick. And they usually take a shortcut through the gardens, right? A gardens area, something similar to botanical gardens. And I don't know if that person was stalking her or whatever. That case nothing came of that case at the end of the day, right? And so we need to develop a buddy system. A friend of mine was protesting outside of the High Court this week actually, and he gave some good ideas. He said there needs to be a station that children can report to after school if their parents don't show up and they're waiting or whatever. There needs to be an area that they can report to that can help them find where their parents are. There needs to be more togetherness in the community. We need to look out for predators. We need to teach our children who predators is. I think there needs to be a whole educational campaign, and should have already been an educational campaign going around in schools. So there are a number of things that could be done. True. Because for now we have this lax view of who we are as a people, and we need to tighten up.
I agree. And any child is too much. Even one child is too many. One is too many. Yeah, that's right. And so I just want to send my condolences to the family of Chantelle. I know I'm all the way in Dominica, but still my heart is in Antigua with the family and friends of the young child. Hoping for a speedy judicial process so that at least the families can get some justice. Anything you want to add or send out to the family or
well, before I do that, one thing I did want to mention is that the person charged with her murder is actually under heavy security at His Majesty's prison, and she is being watched and monitored in an isolated area. One, because of rumored mental health issues, and of course because people, even prisoners and prison officers, are upset about the situation. So when she appeared, because there is this system in Antigua and Barbuda, when you're on remand, you're not supposed to remain on remand for more than 8 days without coming to the magistrate's court for like a personal or health checkup, right? So they have to bring her to the magistrate's court. The first time that they did that, which was this week, they put a bulletproof vest on her, and there was heavy security presence because of the threats that are coming from the public, because they want to see justice be done. And they even think that by protecting her physical self, that the police is sending the wrong message. But at the end of the day, the police has to do their job, right? So you have a sense of,
job's right.
Yes, we get it that you have to do your job, but this thing is so upsetting. We need you to release her into the public. But that's not how the judiciary functions. That's not how our law functions.
No, that's how it works.
Exactly. So a lot of feelings going around in the air. Her next court hearing is in June, and people think that's too far. Given what has happened, they want things to happen already. Yes, it was very, very far. But I mean, we'll see what happened, and of course, condolences to. I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
You know what I said? I said the public has to give the police a chance to build a case. Can I just?
Yes, but the thing is, there is this distrust in the police, because, and it's not to say the police isn't doing anything in the background. I mean, it's their job. They may very well be doing something in the background. But the problem is they don't come to the public to report it in a way that makes the public feel comfortable. And so the public just has this general distrust, just like they have the distrust for politicians. They have this general distrust of police for several reasons. And so you see that happening. So they're like, I don't think anything is going to be done. Exactly. But yeah, I do want to
But once
send
again,
condolences to. Say that again.
no, go ahead.
And I wanted to
Go
send
ahead, send your friend.
condolences to her family, her sister and her father. Apparently, very distraught when they were having the protest. They were out. Her mother wasn't there, and obviously for good reason. It's not easy to see a family member of yours, especially at such a young age, treated in such a way, and you'd have to come and identify the body and all that stuff. It's not something that you get over, and people say in time you'll get over something, but you never really get over it. You just get to learn to live with it. And I don't know how it's going to affect their mental health, because even the alert, the name of the alert, Chantelle Alert, every time a child goes missing, they're going to have to relive that, right? Um, it's just a sad situation all around, and I hope that they are receiving the help that they need. I believe the government is going to assist with her funeral. And interestingly, I think why the atmosphere was so heavy last weekend was hours before they found her body, there was a police officer who, um, I'm trying to put it in the most acceptable way possible, who inflicted gunshot wounds, self-inflicted gunshot wounds,
Say
and
it
died
bluntly.
hours before that. So didn't have a chance. People didn't have a chance to process that alleged suicide. And then hours later, they're hearing, well, the young child was murdered. So it was a very, very, very heavy weekend. And I hope we don't see any of that anytime soon ever again. But we need to keep in mind that it's a changing world, and we need to be cognizant of our environment.
Right? Yeah, I agree with you. Once again, thanks for that beautiful insight into the situation. I appreciate you taking time off from your day off to join us here on Join the Shabin. And you laid it out perfectly for us. I better understand the situation, and I am better able to basically share my insights as it relates to the situation in Antigua. I'm hoping that those who join us also will get something very significant from today's episode. And if you're still listening to the sound of my voice, I want to thank you for also joining us today. And want to thank my special guest, Miss George. As we end today's episode, we want to say good night from the Dread, and of course, good night from the Shabin in her absence. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode.